I always want to start at shadows and trauma and wound types. These are obstructions in your channels. If we don't know what's obstructing the way, then we can't find our way. If we're looking at this long string that's connecting us to source, if this string has any blockages along the way, you won't be able to hear or feel or know your calling, right? And so trauma, shadows are all things that kind of create psychic debris and cause disruption and separates you from the source. And so once we can gather what those things are, we can start removing them, sweeping them out of the way, and then that channel becomes open. You have to actually come into it yourself. That's what embodiment is, right? And in order to experience embodiment, that channel has to be really clear.
Welcome back to another episode of Women of Tomorrow. If you are new here, thank you so much for stopping and clicking on this video. Women of Tomorrow is a platform dedicated to the longevity and success of women. So if that's you, please take a moment to watch this video, comment, like, share, and subscribe.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing well.
Yeah, you're hanging in there.
Yes.
You look so beautiful.
Thank you, girl. You too.
I'm loving all of the beautiful adornments.
Thank you.
And I was asking you earlier, you just like pick them up along the way?
Yes.
Is there a significance to any of them specific, or to I guess a healing modality or anything like that that you focus on, or is it just like aesthetic?
Yes. So this jade bracelet I got from my mom, and it represents abundance and prosperity and kind of just bringing in like good vibrations to your life. This is my grandmother's bracelet, and she has transitioned, so it's about keeping my ancestral lineage with me.
Yeah.
This is a rose quartz.
So beautiful.
Thank you. It draws in unconditional love. So it's known as like the love stone. And then I have the amethyst right here, which, thank you. And amethysts are known for like really just bringing in spiritual energy, keeping you attuned and intuitive.
Those are so pretty. And do you wear them all the time? Like, or is that like do you take them off, or do you wear them basically every day?
I definitely take this and all these off.
Okay.
But I never take these sets off.
You keep those on. Those are beautiful.
Thank you.
I've never seen them so like big and chunky.
Yeah.
I
like I like big and eccentric and just in your face type of jewelry.
And have you found them in places in Atlanta, or have you found them like in your travels and stuff like that?
Oh yes, these is from Atlanta.
Okay, good. So maybe I might be able to find some.
Yeah, you'll be able to find some.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it, even with lives, and so I'm so glad that you came here to be with us.
Thank you for having me.
I want to just like jump right into it.
Let's do it.
I want you to first kind of just tell me what do you do? What is your day-to-day, like what is your purpose, your calling, and your business?
Okay. So I am a holistic engineer. I like
that name.
Thank you.
Never heard it.
I would even say like a soul technician. I really take time to really connect with people on a soul level and teach from that space and learn and connect from that space. So the business that I co-own is about creating sacred experiences for the evolution of consciousness, and that happens through retreats, one-to-one coaching, as well as like I teach people how to become sound healers, how to be intuitive counselors, all types of things that really just really getting into like trauma-informed therapy, learning how to master yourself and understand yourself in all the depths that we can. I'm a deep diver. And so that's part of what I do. And then I'm also a mom of 3, and I homeschool them.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, so while maintaining a business, I'm also raising my children, and I believe that both of those are my purposes.
Yeah, that's a lot. I love it.
Thank
And you
you.
show up like just a little soft little rose petal. I'm like, you over here doing the Lord's work.
Thank you.
Deep diving. So what did the journey to this, was it informed by like your childhood? Like, what was your childhood like? Where were you born and raised?
Okay. So I was born in Brooklyn, New York.
Okay.
My family is from Trinidad and Grenada.
Oh,
so
nice.
grew up in a Caribbean household. And my mom, I was thinking about this today. I was thinking my mom is I grew up with a mom being very militant.
Oh.
And as a child, I was like, oh my gosh, she's so strict. But as an adult, I understand her position. And she had a lot of high expectations. You know, she expects me to be on a roll, to have all the types of academic accolades, and to do my best, get straight A's, all things like that.
Okay.
And push me to even read above my grade levels at an early age. And she really pushed self-resilience as well as self-sufficiency. So I learned from a young age how to show up for myself and for others. And so
what age was that, do you think, that it kind of clicked for you?
I would probably say maybe like 9, or maybe, somewhere between 8 and 9. It really clicked in me that I have to be a certain way, and that I had a certain level of responsibility on my shoulders, and that I had to really know what I was doing and be very aware. So like in Brooklyn, it's not uncommon for a child to like get on the city bus or get on a train to go to school, and that's some things that I had to do. You think about doing that now, and you're like, no way my 8-year-old's getting on a bus.
Yeah.
A city bus.
In Brooklyn, yeah.
Exactly, right. But that's just, you know, that was the life growing up then, you know. And so I would say and then my mom was a nurse.
Okay.
And so she worked a lot of hours nurses do.
Yeah.
You know, saving lives, helping lives, and things like that. So sometimes she'd work 80 hours a week.
Wow.
And so I grew up, you know, being raised by a tribe as well, you know, to help my mom, who was a single mom. And she was 19 when she was pregnant with me, 20 when she had me. So she was young, but young and brilliant, young and intelligent. And so she was just telling me about my birth story the other day, and how she just hopped on the train when she felt she had contractions all by herself, and then birthed me without medicine. So I was like, oh, that explains so much.
Wow, she's a unicorn. Wow.
Yes.
Go ahead. Were you saying
No,
that?
go ahead.
Okay. When you were growing up, did you know your mom was unique and special? Did you admire her, or what was the dynamic?
So it was both ways. I definitely knew she was unique and special because nobody really around us was like her. We grew up vegan, vegetarian.
Okay.
And she was like very pro-black, very revolutionary, very teaching you about the oppressor and different, like have your own mind, and very much against the government and things like that. So it was always like a double education with her. If I went to school, if I learned about a white astronaut or a white scientist, I was coming home and I was going to learn somebody that was African American as well, even Chinese, even Mexican. She just was very like, you're going to know more than what they're teaching you, and you're going to know that your world is not small. So that was like...
That's beautiful.
Yeah, so some people were very... taken back by her revolutionariness, you know?
Was she a conspiracy theorist?
All of that, all the things.
Yeah.
You know, and then we were, I grew I was born into Islam, but at a young age, probably about 7 years old, we started practicing Islam, and so we were non-religious as well. So it was a lot of different things that we were that other people were not used to. So it's like, okay, you're not religious, you don't eat meat, and you're so pro-black, all that type of thing. So I knew she was different because people always distinctly was pointing that out about us and how we were being raised.
Was it like they were criticizing it? Was
Sometimes.
it playful jokes? What, like?
Yeah, both ways.
Both ways.
Sometimes people were like intrigued. Other times people were like, that's weird. Like I'll have a birthday party. We got veggie patties and veggie hot dogs and, you know, things like that. And they're like, oh, I'm not eating that. You know, thinking that is weird and stuff. And so I definitely had feelings of like isolation because there wasn't a lot of other people like us.
Yeah. And so the other side of it, did you admire her, or were you just like, oh, why is my life? Why is this like this? I want to be like other kids.
I definitely went through the phase of wanting to be like everybody else and not stand out so much. And which I did, like in my teenage years. Like, so like my mom, she gave me and my sister locks, you know, and then I got a perm, you know.
What did she say about the perm?
She was hot, smoking hot.
Did you sneak and do it?
Yes, with my aunt. It was definitely snuck and did it. And and then family members like kind of snuck and gave me meat, so I started eating like chicken and stuff. I never got really heavy into eating meat, but definitely started with the chicken, and I was like love chicken for a while. So there was that rebellion side of like wanting to, you know, be more closely like everybody else. And I mean, but and so you did that. Did you get like strict punishments for when you went through that? Because I feel like the teen years, 13 to like 17, it's just like we're wild. Like we need to explore ourselves. Like we need to have that time. Did you get in trouble, punishment, like? I mean, she expressed her feelings, but for the most part, by the time I was a teenager, my mom kind of like loosened her grip. Before then, she was like very strict. And then by the time I turned a teenager, I would say maybe like we weren't living in Brooklyn anymore. We moved to Jersey. We had a nice house. She was making a lot of money. So I think her stress levels were more down. And so she was a lot more like, okay, just, you know, be free, be yourself. I mean, I like it, you know, but I'm not going to be, you know, coming down on you about it. So.
I love that because we do need, in those ages, we do need that freedom to explore and learn. Did you realize back then that, oh, mommy's a little less, she's more chill now, or is this a reflection? You're reflecting back on that?
No, I knew then. I was like, she acting different. Kind of looking the side eye and like, who are you? She's not normally this cool, but she just became like real chill and open. And would like invite all my friends to do things, and she's gonna pay for everybody to do it, and you know, let me have parties and hang out with my friends. So I definitely noticed it then. Like, okay, mom.
Were the teenage years good years?
They were definitely. I had a lot of fun, especially with my cousins. I come from a very big family, and we are very close in a lot of different ways. But we also like experience a lot of different different traumas or different challenges and difficulties as well, you know. And I had experienced certain things that when I was a child that kind of started coming up when I became a teenager. So it's kind of like working through all of those things and trying to like identify like who I am. So even how you're like, you have such a calm demeanor, I've kind of always had that. My grandma said even when I was a baby, people always said that about me. And there was always kind of like this battle of being that being and the person like trying to fit in with like, can I be more hood, be more ghetto, be more black, you know what I'm saying? Or
did you have that? Did you have people saying you weren't black enough?
yes, definitely, because I'm like, good morning, and they're like, we from Brooklyn, we don't say good morning. Like, why are you talking to me?
Right, like, don't get fucked up. Just for saying, you know, just for being, I guess, happy and pleasant.
Yeah, yeah. People always like, you definitely not from here, or you're different, you know?
Yeah.
And so I definitely went through that phase of trying to like fit in.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. You were speaking about your mom being encouraging self-sufficiency, self-sustainability. Did you, even though your mom, you know, was making good money, did you still have to get a job, or did you have a job as a teenager?
Yes.
Okay.
I had my first job at 14. She didn't make me have a job, but I feel like I had to get a job because I had to like build upon this responsibility that she spoke to, and just learn how to have my own good work ethic as well. And I think I just kind of always been like that. Like, I want to have my own and be able to buy what I want to buy and stuff like that. So it was never like a financial hardship that's like, you need to get a job. But I definitely felt like get a job, and I did. So at 14.
And you liked having a job, having your own.
I like making money.
Making money.
I did. Basically, at that age.
You liked the outcome of it.
Yeah.
And that was, but you were in Jersey at the time when you started working, getting jobs. So tell me about, I guess, when you decided that I am going to help others. A lot of times it's in our DNA.
Yeah.
Some people take the calling and some people don't, but you obviously did. When did you start feeling that calling to do that?
I would say that it's always been with me for sure. Since I was a child, even adults would come to me and just tell me all their problems and want to know what I think, or just want me to hold space for them. I've always been that person where a stranger can meet me and they'll tell me their whole life story, and they don't know why, you know, and I'm there, I'm present. And so that, I always felt like I always felt very aligned. Even though I didn't have those words at that age, like that always felt right, you know? And I knew that I wanted to help. I just didn't know in what capacity. I kind of went with, do I want to be a nurse or a doctor? Do I want to be a counselor? Do I want to be a teacher? Like, you know, if somebody is sick, it didn't matter if I was, 10 years old, I'm like at their bedside, getting them tea, helping them out, changing their rags with a forehead. Like, that was just always kind of how I was. Wow. And so as I got older, and I actually, as far as like getting into how I got to where the job that I do now, is that I went through an abusive relationship at 17. Okay. And through that relationship, and what I've learned over the years, is that our ability to interact and have connections with other people can really be our greatest teachers. And so that relationship reflected a lot of the shadows that I was repressing, and or didn't really have the tools to know that were there. And the interaction was dredging up a lot of like childhood trauma, and putting me in this space where I'm being able to see that my mind can be manipulated. I can be impressionable. I can get into this space where somebody can gaslight me or different things like that. And when that relationship was over, it was really the spark and catalyst to my awakening, because I kept asking, well, who am I? You know?
You didn't trust yourself after that relationship? Like, how did I choose this person? How did I end up with this person?
I definitely had those thoughts, because prior to that relationship, I was super like, I don't want to see you every day kind of girl. Like, don't be pressing me, don't be bothering me. I call you when I call you type of person. And because I had experienced like childhood sexual abuse, I had this mindset that once I lost my virginity, that person was going to be my person. And that narrative kind of kept me in the relationship past the duration that it would take somebody to kind of psychologically trip you up and make you like guess your reality, you know, or second guess your reality.
Yeah.
And so there was things that I was that he would, you know, speak to, like, oh, you know, I don't like your music. He broke up all of my CDs and stuff like that. I don't like the way you dress. I want you to dress differently. Now, even though I'm not gonna advocate ever for somebody that's controlling your life, but in reflection, a lot of the things that he was speaking to was a lot of stuff that I was conforming myself to, of over trying to be like everybody else. Now, he didn't know that. He didn't have consciousness of that.
Yeah.
But this kind of relationship where you're going through a shadow box with somebody that lives from their shadow, right? Because some people live from their light, some people live from their shadow, and some others are in that integration period, right?
That makes sense.
Yeah, and so with him being like that, it was kind of making me force myself to kind of look at my own choices and force myself to ask, like, who am I now without what I was before and the things that he stripped from me and the person that I became after, you know? And through that, once I got to college, going to college kind of ended our relationship, I went to school for my bachelor's in music, and music is a phenomenological that can really transform your life, right? And once I started singing, at the time I didn't know, but I was going through a throat chakra cleansing, and that really just kind of opened up.
What do you mean cleansing?
So
'Cause I know I've heard of opening,
Yes.
like when it's closed and you don't know how to express yourself. What do you mean cleansing?
So your throat chakra is your voice. It's how you communicate and interact with the world, right? It basically speaks to your authenticity. So by opening up and singing, this cleansing is happening where I'm removing this debris of my false identities, right? It was like removing this voice that had got muted in this relationship. It was cleansing this person that I thought I had to be to basically fit somebody else's ideal of how I should be, you know, and it kind of opened me up to be like, well, who am I? Like, just the opening of your voice of just those sounds kind of make you really dive deep into yourself and trying to figure that out. And through that cleansing, then that becomes an opening, right? Because we're saying opening, that means something must be closed, right? That means something has to be removed. And so through music, as I was singing and writing songs and all these different things, I started to feel a presence of spirit. And I remember that my mom told me that when you get old enough, you'll figure out what your spiritual beliefs are. And so that kind of brought me into Christianity, to the church, because I started singing gospel music. And I could feel the presence of spirit. And I was like, wow. But then I went through a whole phase where I'm like, okay, Christianity is not my religion, but I appreciate Christ consciousness. And I'm learning so much from this way of life. And I was like gung-ho. For those 6 months, I was gung-ho. Everything the Bible was saying, I was like, I'm not listening to certain music. I'm not eating certain things. I'm not wearing certain stuff. But even that taught me about spiritual discipline. So it's like, I look at that as like a foundation.
Got it.
You know, so it was like years that I went without watching certain things that, you know, kind of like taint the mind. Wasn't cursing, wasn't listening to music that can like deter my brain from thinking far away from sacredness. And like through that process kind of helped me to be like, okay, but if it's not Christ, if it's not Christianity, that's my religion, then what is it? And I had like this big breakthrough where I was like, Spirit, show me. I feel you. And I feel like it's more for me than just Christianity. I feel like there's more outside of this for myself, you know? And if I'm wrong, be very clear, and if I'm not, keep guiding me. And that kind of guided me to find where I belong spiritually. And so I had that perm hair, I cut it all off. I went back to eating vegan, and I also started to, you know, play my guitar on the grass, hug trees, like just live what people might look at as like a hippie life, right? But that hippie life was it was healing for me. It was everything for me.
Yeah.
And I went through that space of people like, oh, you're a devil worshiper because you're not Christian, or, you know, wanting to throw holy water on me or say things about me. And
from the church? People from the church?
yes.
Okay.
People from the church that knew that I wasn't Christian and stuff like that. And so when that happened, I went through this battle. Here goes the battle again of my chosen identity and what somebody else thinks I'm going to be, right? And that's what conflict is, right? Conflict is this two choices between a version of yourself, an old version of yourself, and a new version, immersion, right? And so, but when they were combating, it was different than before, like when I was in that relationship, because who I was actually my true identity. And so it was easier for me to relinquish not caring that they don't agree with how I'm living my life. And I was like, oh my God, that's lifted off my shoulder, because this makes me feel happy. This feels the most right to me ever in life. I've never felt more myself. And by the time that I anchored myself in that, everything around me started to shift. People weren't combating me or, you know, arguing with me on my choices, right? And that really showed me how being in your authenticity really shifts how a person interacts with you.
Wow.
And by doing that, that kind of brought to that space of now I can show up as myself, and that is the helper. That is like the one that wants to facilitate with the healing process. That is the person that wants to encourage you coming into your self-realization and your actualization. And it was through that process that made all the reasons of why I did that as a child make sense, because it's been there all along, you know, to just show up as yourself, even if other people are at war with how you show up, because it's different from them.
Wow. As you were talking, I'm just like, I'm really grateful. I your energy, I feel it. I feel.
Thank you. Give thanks.
I really do. I feel a sense of emotion, but it's calming. And I'm so happy that you're here. I really
thank
am.
you. Me too.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. I see a lot of the sexual abuse, children. Do you, from your perspective, do you think it happens a lot in large families, where, I don't know, I guess maybe not, it can happen in any time. I'm just thinking about the dynamic of large families when we're all close, everyone's just assuming that everything is a safe space, and there might be just like a lot of like people living in their shadows that are dealing with that, and it just kind of like spreads in the family. From the work that you do helping with people, what have you seen when it comes to the sexual abuse?
So in the work and within myself, for myself, it wasn't in my family.
Okay.
It was from a friend or somebody that was my friend at the time in their family. Yeah, so it wasn't in my family, but when it comes to like clients that I've worked with, like doing counseling for, I can say that it was happened more with people in their families than not. You know, I think it's just more so wrong place. You know, you're in the wrong place at the wrong time type of vibe, and not like on the victim or the person who's experienced it, but just, you know, you live in a certain neighborhood and that person across the street or that person next door, or you know, you have a close friend and they have a family member over, you know, it's usually like stuff like that. I can't say that majority are from people that's like, it's a incestual type of sexual abuse.
We speak about that a lot. We also have been talking a lot about relationships and the mirroring of relationships, and how you are able in relationship, especially in romantic relationship, because we tend to be so devoted to the romantic relationships, and two becomes one type of energy. So we really give a lot of weight to those relationships. And then someone like yourself was able to do the work from what you saw in the relationship. Is that it, with the work that you do people typically come to you struggling through the relationship phase of things? Is that really like the first touch point when they're realizing that they need help or their life is in shambles and that kind of thing?
I would say yes. Like a lot of times, because especially when people go through breakups, you go through a phase of trying to question your self-worth. You want to know whether or not it has anything to do with your value. And whenever we get into that space, we start questioning a lot about ourselves, and those questions can kind of create a lot of disruptive and separative thoughts. And you start to have like that inner conflict or battle within you, you know, and so that can kind of create this space of wanting to get support because now you don't feel whole, you know, and it's all about learning about being able to be your own sovereign being, regardless of being in a romantic relationship. And I'm a big person and a big proponent on having meaningful connections and relationships, period, across board. So the type of emotional intimacy that people only reserve for their romantic relationships, I want to have with my friends as well, because I think that that's what friendship means. And even people that I just meet, like if the space is called for that, then we're gonna go there, you know, and we're gonna be able to show up and show out for one another. And I feel like those levels of vulnerability creates like expansion inside of ourselves that we couldn't otherwise get with just one single person. And we kind of put like way too much pressure on single-handedly, like thinking that one person is supposed to be our all, you know. When
that's the fairy tale.
It's a fairy tale. It's not to say that we don't have our person, you know, but it is to say that we are in this interdependent universe where everything is dependent on everything to show up as itself, right? Every encounter that we have, if we are present, can be meaningful, whether it's to show you what's not right or it's to show you what's aligned, you know? And so it's kind of like a shift in perception that you start to have the more that you become aware of like the all, and you stop kind of looking at a lot of like your pain story as like your tragedy or your victimhood, or like the blaming things as the stuff, all these things that happened to me, and you start like shifting that to testimony, like, oh, that happened, and in that process of that happening, I've learned and gained this. This is the wisdom, this is the alchemy that has transformed through this process, you know? And so when it comes to like, you know, having these romantic relationships, when we stop placing so much weight of our value on that, when they're not there, we still have other things that breathe life into us, you know, and that's pretty much when I do have clients, and that's where they are. It's like, let's get to that point where you can love yourself as a whole being, you know, and not look at yourself as you're somebody walking around as a half looking for your other half.
Looking for the other half. Yeah, because we have been kind of socialized to believe like, I'm looking for my other half, my better half. They say that all the time. It's like, well, damn, that's kind of a curse. If you're looking for your better half, is if it's not in you, if you're not the better half. At least if you're the half, be the better half.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Why you gotta go find your better half?
Right, you know, and really the holy matrimony for me is the union between the divine feminine and divine masculine that resides in all of us. When we can bring those two into union, then we can really show up in our relationships. Then we can really like bring our best self forward. But if I'm relying on somebody else to bring about the masculine, then I don't get anything done, you know, because masculine energy is actionable steps. Feminine energy is intuitive. It's the creativity. Like, now I got all these ideas and all these visions, right? But they won't go nowhere if I don't activate my masculine energy to bring them to materialization, you know, because masculine is form and feminine is formless, you know, that's why it's so free and open and moving, you know, right? So it's like when we can bring those two together, that's when you feel whole. And if you feel more whole, when you meet the person that you're supposed to be with, then it creates, have you ever seen like the flower of life? And it's like a whole bunch of circles on top of one another.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not halves, right? Coming together. It's whole circles that create this beautiful petal, this beautiful flower.
I'm gonna look at it again because I'm getting, I want to look at that again, but that makes sense. It's just like the overlapping.
Exactly. The overlapping, and now we have that overlapping is that shared experience that we have together, but I still have my own sovereignty and you still have your own sovereignty, almost like a Venn diagram, right? That middle piece is our shared experience together, what we create when our energies are mixed together, right? And that's what's more beautiful and important to me. Everybody has like their own vision on that, but that speaks to me more.
No, that's wise. That feels right to me as well. You were speaking about the masculine and the feminine, and I'm really into that right now. It kind of, because I kind of was starting to really question my idea around the physical, my physical self and my spiritual self, and wanting to learn how to not necessarily merge the two, but accept both of them, right? Like, cause I'm like, oh, well, I need to be doing this because I'm spiritual. Like, I can't like want to buy a pretty outfit, you know what I'm saying? Because that's the physical world and that's going to distract me. And then it's brought me into like the light and the dark and how both of them are here for a reason. And then the feminine and the masculine, a lot of, I feel like the conversation, like the mainstream conversation, masculine and feminine is really about, they're just making it about gender roles.
Right.
And not about like the essence of like life. And I love the way that you described it. And if you would speak on that a little bit more, we have it. We have both inside of us as men and as women. Yeah. And speak a little bit more about what the feminine traits are, I guess, and the masculine. Okay.
So feminine energy is sensual, it's creative, it's intuitive, it's nurturing, it's also chaotic, right? Because it doesn't reside in form. It's so free, it's boundless, you know, and so it can go through all stretches, all corners of existence. And it is also wild, right? If you ever heard of anybody speaking about rising your Shakti energy, which is your feminine energy, Kundalini energy. Okay. If you have a Kundalini awakening, there is nothing calm about it. It is very just open and moving and wild type of energy, right? And that's our true form, you know, it's in its rawest essence, right? When we're drawing energy down from like our root, we're drawing it from even including our animal parts of ourselves up into the crown, which is like our most spiritual selves. That's kind of like bringing that union between the lower and the higher worlds together. And so that energy can be very strong, you know, and feminine energy is also calm. It's both ends of it all, but because we're supposed to, it's the texture of emotion, like all of the contrast of emotion, all the contrast of feeling, right? And all feelings are not calm, right? Yep. And then masculine energy is form. It's structured, it's organized, it's logical, it's analytical, it is material. It puts confines in things, it compartmentalizes things. Whereas like feminine energy, everything is all intertwined, right? So I like to use that example with the spaghetti and the waffle. Like feminine energy is like spaghetti, everything is all mixed together, right? It's why you're like, we could be in a conversation with somebody and we're still thinking about the problem that we have while we're trying to do work, because it's all together, it's no separation. Where if we're in a masculine mindset, you can compartmentalize, like that has nothing to do with what we're doing right now because I'm in this quadrant, right? And so masculine energy is the ability to do that. You need that. You
Yeah.
need to be able to compartmentalize for certain things, right? It's also like to be able to build, to make things come into fruition, right? So when you bring those together, kind of how I was saying, like if I have an intuitive imprint, a vision through a dream or through just us conversing right now, if I get a vision of something, masculine energy comes to bring it into form. So it's that's kind of how I could describe what those two principles are, and how we utilize both of them helps us propel ourselves forward. You know, even to be able to be an entrepreneur and to have my own business, it is a spiritual business, right? But and business, right? Spiritual and it's business, right?
Yeah, it's still a business.
It's still it's basically putting what just living, because I'm gonna do that regardless if I made a dime or not, because that's what I did before this was a business, right? It's a calling that I can't renounce, you know, that I feel very strongly towards, and that's my feminine energy. It's like the need to nurture, right? And it's nurturing this purpose, like it's on me, right? And my masculine self is like, okay, but we live on Earth, right? And Earth requires resources in order to sustain ourselves. So we still need to receive certain things, right? And the universe works like that. The universe works in reciprocity. Everything is giving and receiving, right? But sometimes people, and I went through I had to go through a dissolution about this on my spiritual journey as well, about getting money, or how you're like, want to get that nice outfit and stuff like that. Yeah. But, you think about spirituality and you think you have to denounce material, but spirit came here to be a part of material, right? We are spiritual beings in a human body because that's the expression that it wanted to experience. It wanted to experience density. It wanted to experience humanity and feel what it's like to be a part of this world. So there is not being of it that you lose sight of your spirit, but not being so far gone that you're not being responsible or being accountable or being able to take care of things that you need.
Got it.
Yeah. So I like to think of like the affinity symbol, like it's like the number 8, and it's the representation of being in heaven and earth, or being in spirit and being in flesh, and having that balance between the two, finding that balance, right? And so it's just being able to understand that both are coexisting. And I was having a conversation with a friend, and I was like, wow, that is the divine union of it all, the form and the formless together, right? And I was like, wow, that's one. The oneness is that form and spirit together. Yeah. So I was like, wow, that just blew my mind just to just sit with that.
My mind is blown right now because the way you're explaining and expressing this, it makes so much sense. It's making a lot of sense for me in my life, and the way that I've been makes me think of like the times where people say women are unrealistic, they don't live in reality. And then how the men are logical and they go out and get stuff done. It just makes sense because it's in us. It's in us to be boundless and to be able to see all and have that intuition, which maybe the male is not tapped into as much. So I'm over here. I feel affirmed in this. I do. It's
also why a lot of people who are super masculine are looking to be so free, because they are seeking the boundless. They want to know what it's like to have freedom and not feel so confined, because masculine energy is confined. It is like you have parameters, right? And so they are seeking the feminine that is boundless, like that is free within itself and can move as it wants to. But there's shadow sides to being too boundless, right? Not having any boundaries, right?
Yeah. Do you think that has anything to do with the masculine wanting to, I don't know how to even say it, like men wanting to have experiences with lots of different women? It's just like, this is my other side where I'm free, right?
Yes.
I wonder, like, that makes me think about that. And then like, how do you think we got like this? Like, is it does it start on a biological level, like based on like the kind of chromosomes and stuff we have, that, okay, yes, you're a male, so you're going to have more masculine energy? Or do you think it's really based on society and how we've been socialized to believe that, you know, through those roles and stuff? So men, don't cry, don't do this, don't explore, just like, no, get those trucks and go start. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
where do you think it more of the tradition lies?
I would say, because I tend to think globally.
Okay.
And everywhere is not like what we're used to. Everything is different. So I can't say that it is social conditioning as far as how people are showing up gender-wise. But I do think that on one end, like, women are the material form of feminine energy, right? And men are the masculine representation of the physical form of masculine. But that doesn't mean that both don't reside in each one.
Yeah.
You know, it's just about representation.
Got it.
As far as biology is concerned. But I do think socialization has a big say on how either one is showing up.
Yeah. How do you get your clients to start creating that balance within themselves? Is there a touch point where you start?
Well, I always start at shadow.
Okay.
I always want to start at shadows and trauma and wound types, because these are called, what I like to call, like, obstructions in your channels. If we don't know what's obstructing the way, then we can't find our way, right? If we're looking at this long tube, this maybe string that's connecting us to source, if this string has any blockages along the way, you won't be able to hear or feel or know your calling, right? And so trauma, shadows are all things that kind of create psychic debris and cause disruption and separates you from the source. And so once we can gather what those things are, we can start removing them, sweeping them out of the way, and then that channel becomes open. And then, you know, from that, it's not like I could ever tell somebody what they're supposed to be or who. I can pick it up, I can infer, I can be intuitive about it, yes. But that takes the fun out of your awakening, right? If somebody tells you what you're supposed to be. We can share what we see, but you have to actually come into it yourself. That's what embodiment is, right? And in order to experience embodiment, that channel has to be really clear. So my starting point is always, well, tell me what are the things that are blocking you right now? What are the things that's showing up for you that's uncomfortable? What's causing disruption right now? A lot of times you'll say things and it's the surface stuff, right? And we're gonna, okay, but when's the first time that happened? Well, let's dive a little bit deeper. How did that make you feel? Why do you think that made you feel that way? And we'll go. I like to say, like, I'm like a little fisherman, right? Or a fisherwoman. And we're gonna go in there and we're gonna find all the things that don't belong in your waters, right? And pull them out to get to the source. Once you start pulling out all these thorns that are bleeding you out, leaking your energy, taking from you, then you experience wholeness and you experience clarity, and divine intervention starts to take place. And then all those things become very, very clear. So even how I was sharing, I got out of that relationship, I started singing, I was coming in contact with spirit, and I was cleansing all of those things. I was facing, you know, my sexual trauma. I was facing the fact that I was in an abusive relationship. I was facing the feelings of abandonment from my dad not being there. Like, everything was at the forefront. I couldn't run from it, and I didn't want to. You know, and I forced myself, snot nose, crying, didn't matter, on the floor, dealing with the shadow. And what I found was, there is actual light on the other side of this, right? There is actual freedom from this burden that I thought would be with me forever, you know? Yes, there could be a memory, but it doesn't have to be an embodiment. Sometimes we are wearing our narratives like cloaks, and those cloaks dim our light, right? So in therapy, or somatic therapy, we call it like de-armoring, which is removing all these things that we thought we needed to have on us to protect us from the world. But we don't realize that these walls we put up or these armors that we put up don't just protect us from being harmed, but they also block us from actually receiving blessings as well, and block us from being able to connect with our soul and have this conversation with, what are we here to do? What is my divine calling in this lifetime? Who am I supposed to show up, and why am I supposed to be here? And so it's really just kind of getting into that. And once we can remove all of that, those things start to come to you a lot more clearer. It becomes so loud that you're like, oh, wow, I didn't even know that was talking to me all this time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm so not on my list right now because it's just so many things that I'm being called to ask just based on how you're sharing. You were speaking about the shadow, and that's really where you start.
Yeah.
And where you started with yourself. Now, you being a nurturer at such a young age and being on the bedside of people that were ill and, you know, restless, whatever the case may be, are you an empath? Did you absorb that? Did their shadow start integrating with yours? Like, how was that for you, holding so much space for people so early, and then getting into the place where you started getting to your self-mastery?
So when I started working in hospice, and so that's working with the terminally ill, as a music therapist, I really started to notice like how much being an empath had an impact on me energetically. I can't say that before that I really noticed it as much, but because that's such heavy work, and you know, I'm providing grief counseling for family members and for the person that's anticipating their death. It's like a transition. It's a lot of things that you're bringing with you and having to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And I am an empath naturally, so I had to learn through that how to do what I call like or many people call auric cleansing, and do like, I do now like a vow, but my vow kind of like, I don't have to say it or think of it as much because now it's just a part of like my being. But that I'm only here as a vessel and a conduit to transmit any type of medicinal cosmic energy that's flowing through me to this person, and that anything that they need to hear or know, it's not coming from my ego, it's not coming from me, it's coming straight from spirit, so that they can receive the message that they need. And by doing that type of dissolution of ego, I don't really carry what other people got anymore, because part of the work is that I'm just a vessel. You know, it's not my personality that's doing it, where, you know, your ego becomes inflated by it. You know, and so the ego is what loves attachment. Spirit is about detachment. Spirit is about submission and surrender and things like that. And so it doesn't hold things like that, but the ego does. And so by practicing ego dissolution when you're working with people, that really helps you to take care of like your energetic boundaries.
I need a whole little dictionary, because all these terms that resonate, I'm like, I don't know fully what they mean, but yeah, like that makes sense. So, okay, tell me this: what is music therapy? You said you were doing music therapy at hospice. What is that?
So I'm a musician. I studied classical voice as my bachelor's. And so music therapists are musicians who study therapeutic approaches to help an individual in many different populations. And so it's a healthcare profession. We study behavioral health, cognitive development, anatomy, counseling, psychology, abnormal psychology, all these different types of things to understand the human mind. We do neuroscience and everything. And we basically try to utilize music as a bridge to accomplish a non-musical goal. So, for example, in hospice, a lot of my patients had Alzheimer's disease. And the way that music works, it can basically be, is one of the only things in the world that touches all parts of the brain. It's not specified to one side of the brain. So a person who may have lost their memory, maybe even lost their speech, through music can begin to sing or can begin to speak, because it's now activating all parts of their brain. And so that's helping accomplish a non-musical goal, which is to facilitate a higher quality of life, so they can sing, so they can laugh, they can talk, they can interact with their family. You know, I've also done music therapy with children, teenagers who are dealing with suicidal ideation, you know, and using music to help them to address their emotional wounds, helping them to understand like what's going on psychologically, you know, using lyrics to help them to identify words that they may not, because of their age, know how to express, but through music they can, you know, because music can give them the words that they don't have themselves. So it's basically a musician that utilizes music to be able to counsel or help support other people.
Yeah, I love that. Just came to my mind, I want at some point, I get the opportunity, I want to introduce you to my mom. My mom's a child psychiatrist, and she's retiring. And so she's getting more away from what she's used to, which is like, you know, she prescribes pharmaceuticals to her patients and has always. Her heart is there, and that's why she got into it. But I've been wanting, I can see that she's ready to transition to a different way of holding space and helping. And so I would love to introduce you guys and see if she can learn.
That'd be beautiful.
Learn, and maybe there's a possibility for her to have some guidance as she figures out what's the next thing. Because I can tell that she doesn't want to stop, but she does want to change her environment. I think that'll be really great.
Yeah, that would be great. I love it.
Okay, self-mastery.
Yes.
What is self-mastery?
If I could describe it, I'd say self-mastery is this bravery to go on a voyage inside of yourself and explore all the parts of you that are beautiful and also not so beautiful. And finding this path of integration. How can I integrate all of these pieces? How can I create wholeness inside of myself? How can I dissolve identities that are illusionary? Because we do carry things that are not us. We do have thought patterns that are not true to us. And it's about removing those things that are not real, so we can get closer and closer to the truest aspect of who we are. And in that, you gotta be a stalker. You gotta stalk yourself. You gotta stalk your thoughts. You gotta stalk your shadows, your vanities. You know, even how you were talking about, like, the clothes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like, it's fine if you know it's not a vanity. But if it's a vanity, something that you feel like you're doing to impress somebody else, then let's dive into that a little bit deeper. Why do you feel like that's necessary? You know, knowing what your vanities are, knowing how your ego shows up, knowing what your shadows are, and then knowing what your strengths are, knowing what speaks to you, what gives you drive and purpose, what motivates you, what inspires you, what makes you feel full. You know, all of that. By putting all those pieces together, you master the being that you are, and then put it into action. So there's the action, there's the exploration, and that's like the knowledge part, right? You learn yourself, that's knowledge, right? Then you understand yourself, that's wisdom. Then when you apply, that's embodiment. So all those things together.
Why don't you give me a snack?
So taking us.
That's good. Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, that makes total sense. So so we gotta stalk ourselves, just like how we be stalking everybody else.
Exactly.
We need to stalk
we be too worried about everything else but us.
We really do. I think because from an early age, I know I definitely, it was impressed upon me to be accepted. You know, show up, be my mom used to always say, she used to get so happy because she'd be like, oh, every time I speak to someone about you girls, they're always like, your girls are so sweet, they're so this and that. And maybe I'm naturally sweet, but I'm sure a little bit of that was me performing, you know, making sure I was well received and I didn't, you know, embarrass my mom or dad, or, you know what I'm saying, no one had anything negative to say about me. So I think that was initially the start of like people pleasing and wanting to be accepted. And then you start, I definitely started validating outside opinions way too much. I was called sensitive a lot growing up, and just now realizing that sensitivity is pretty cool. Like I can sense stuff, you know, and I can use that as a superpower and not as a weakness. And for so long I thought it was a weakness. When it's like, hey, get some tough skin, it's like, no, my skin's not tough. It's not. Like, I'm gonna cry. So just learning to accept that. So definitely, okay, I'm gonna start stalking myself even more. Would you say that on a day-to-day basis, and I'm just running with stalking because it resonates, right? Because like I know how it is to go lurk or something like that. But is it cool to just like have a notepad with you throughout the day and be like jot down, or maybe even in your phone or your notes, just like really taking note of what's going on?
Absolutely. Just like you would be in class studying or learning from your teacher and you're taking notes, or however you kind of like remember, that's what you should do with yourself, because you literally are studying your own inner psychology. You're studying your patterns, you're studying your experience, you're studying your nervous system as well. How does it respond when certain things happen, you know? Even as you spoke to like people pleasing, you know, that's a fawn trauma response. And most people who people please have been taught that that's how they receive their validation. That's how they feel safe in their environment, is to know that people like them, to know that people are appeased by their behavior, you know, because they want to be accepted. That feels safe there, you know. And so when we know our own inner terrain, we'll be able to better be true to what is actually coming up in us and not putting on performances. So
that makes sense. We're still rolling. I mean, I know. Okay. There's 3 things I want to just touch on.
Okay.
One, homeschooling. I love it.
Thank you.
And what told you, or when did you say, hey, this is what I'm going to do, and this is how I'm going to do it, and how is it? Is it hard?
Girl, one of the hardest things I ever did.
Ooh, really?
Yeah, it's hard because I have such a big, what I feel like is a big calling on my life as far as work is concerned, you know, and showing up in the community. So it's hard because of that. You know, it's already a big demand. But being a mom is like my greatest honor. And so there is a way that I feel called to show up as a mom, and that is to, you know, be a homeschooling mom. And so that's kind of how that journey, once I had my daughter, I was like, oh no, I want to teach her.
You wanted to be the teacher.
Yeah, I wanted to teach her, and I wanted to capture all her moments and, you know, be there for her and different things like that. Now, granted, there's unschooling too, because life be lifing. And unschooling is allowing your children to just learn from life itself. And it's not super structured of like, let's get these books and let's cram our brain with all of this different information. But just life itself, playing is one of the greatest teachers for children. Just allowing them to explore whatever they want to learn about, you know, them going outside, them being in their room, just exploring themselves and doing things that make them feel happy. That's also teaching them. It's also teaching them self-mastery, you know, at a young age, because they're spending this time learning about what they like, and then don't have too much of a strong influence on what other people think they should be as well.
I love that, because I feel like people put so much weight on math, science, and all that stuff. And it's just like, that stuff can easily be, you know, we can learn it. But the thing what's happening is people are getting into their 40s and 50s and having to understand who they are.
Yep.
Like, they've done all of the schooling and education, and I would say pretty empty after they've done all that, whether they've made a whole bunch of money or not. They're still circling back, like, who am I? Where's my peace? Like, all that stuff. So I think that's a beautiful thing in the way you described it, of like letting them have that learn that self-mastery at the beginning. It feels like it's setting them up for success for real, like in life, you know. So I think that's beautiful, and I'm glad that your children have that from you. I also just want to touch on, like, I know that just the work that you do, the facilitating their retreats, the one-on-ones, even vegan cooking courses. And how does that all play out? I guess I would just say, these are all things that you're doing in your day-to-day, and then you decided to turn them into businesses. What did that look like, and what has that been like on the entrepreneurial side? Like from saying, okay, this is just what I do every day, maybe I can just scale it into a business. Like, is it still tricky after all this time to maintain like the business side of it?
So I would say that it has been a journey. Yes, it's been, but any entrepreneur would tell you that, right? We all know that you gotta
pivot, you gotta move, you gotta shake.
You gotta make it happen. You gotta really want it to. You gotta really, really want it, and you gotta have like supreme resilience and willpower. Like, will is going to be your best friend, right, as an entrepreneur. And so some of the things that I didn't really know how to do business-wise, I've had to learn. So there's like, you know, mistakes you make, failures you have to go through, challenges, dry months and stuff, because you're learning how to do things, you know. And then it's like you're now turning something that you used to do without any funds, you know. Well, even when I worked in hospice, I still on the side counsel people. I still will go, somebody call me in the middle of the night, maybe they're feeling like they're having suicidal ideation, I'm there, you know. Those are things that I was just naturally doing. So now it's like, leave my 9 to 5, right? Okay, leave my benefits, okay. And now this is what you're supposed to be doing day in, day out, you know, and everything will provide you, you know. And so on the business aspect, it just was a learning curve, honestly. I did take maybe like a year and a half of business while I was in school. I probably was like a couple credits from a minor. So I did have some knowledge about business, but really it was just the experience itself that taught me. You know, just really going on social media, sharing certain things, having people sign up for different classes. And then I have like this thirst to learn. So that's why I kind of have like all these different things where I'm like, okay, I'm a Reiki master, I'm a sound healer, music therapist, I'm intuitive counselor, shaman, all these different things. I've got my raw vegan certification as well, and it's all the things that I love and that has helped and support my own journey. So it's like, now I can just share what I know, right? That's what everybody's doing, right? They're sharing their expertise, right? What they spent the most time learning and feeling passionate about. And so that's the same thing that I'm doing in my business. Is like, this is what I spent my time learning. This is what I'm most passionate about. This is what I felt has been monumental in my life. Maybe you might enjoy it as well. And people do.
I'm sold. Y'all, book her. No, seriously. Seriously, like this has been beautiful. This has been an amazing time for me.
Thank you.
You know, I wanted to start Women of Tomorrow. I started it because I wanted to amplify women's voices. One, because I had been shy, you know, and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to facilitate for women that are in this, that are doing this. And in hopes to just like, you know, help as many people as possible. So, so I get a little shy, even every time, a little anxious, like every time, you know, I do a little interview. Conversation, I should say. But this has been magic. I'm so happy. I'm really grateful. Before we end, I want us to select a card. It's just affirmation cards from Rochelle Sine. Okay, I'm gonna have you. What do they call? Shuffle it.
Okay.
And then you'll read from that first side. Just ask the question, and then.
So shuffle and then pick a card?
Shuffle and then pick. Just a little affirmation, you know what I'm saying? Oh, you're shuffling good for them to be so large. Right. Oh, because do you work with cards?
Yes.
Okay. So you're used to it. I'm like, dang, you're doing good.
So just
pick anyone.
Okay. Oh.
What does it say?
It says, in what ways do you want to be loved and appreciated by others? So do I say the other side?
You answer it?
Oh, okay, I answer it first and then say the other side. Okay. I want to be loved and appreciated by others by being able to have sacred space held for me. And I want to just be welcomed for all that I am. That brings like peace and comfort to know that I could be all the shades of me and it's welcomed.
That's beautiful. Because I was going to ask you, I clipped the question because I know we were going over, but I was going to ask you, like, showing up for you, like, you hold space for so many. Who is holding space, or what, you know, what do you do for yourself? But you did mention that you had friendships, relationships.
I got a tight network.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So read what does it say on the back? It's like an affirmation.
Yes. I deserve to be loved and appreciated in the ways I desire. And I communicate this to others with love and respect.
Amen.
Ashe.
This was good. Okay, so what I want to do is have you look into that camera and just you can just tell everyone your offerings, where they can find you, that kind of thing. Whatever it is you want to share.
Okay, awesome. So my Akiyla McQueen, and you can find me on Instagram at A Sacred Vibration, as well as at Akiyla McQueen. And for our business, for retreats, one-to-one counseling, sacred teachings, maybe you want to be certified as a sound healer, intuitive counselor, and different things like that, you can find that at www.supremeessencepfw.com.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It was a blessing. Thank you, for real.
Thank you. Okay, guys, next time. Bye. Peace.